Well, howdy. Good morning. Happy Monday to you. We're back. And for once, we didn't miss a stream between this one and the last one. Starting a new streak, if this were Duolingo, we'd call it. It is a cold morning in Houston, hence my heavy-duty jacket. Only one heavier than this is for literal blizzards or skiing, but I like it. It's cozy. We need some cozy weather. As I said yesterday, I like a little bit of December in my December. Unfortunately, it will be changing later in the week, and we're expecting, like 78 degrees. Life on the Gulf Coast. Either way, for now, we're back. We're streaming. It's a cold, cozy morning, and hey, the coffee's hot, and I'm excited to be here with y'all. Thank you for joining me. So as y'all know, if you've been here before, basic format for Monday, ask me your questions. Whatever you want to ask about. I've had great questions in the past about how to write, how to start telling stories, what's the publishing industry like, how do you make money as an author, all these fun things. Any questions you got that you've wanted to ask someone who writes full-time for a living, please ask me. I am more than happy to help, or at least try to help. No promises, huh? Fat Frog, good to see you, my friend. Welcome in, buddy. Good morning to you. How you been? And Piyush over on Video App. Hello, hello. Good morning to you both. I appreciate you being here. Frog, I hope you had a good weekend, my man. How you doing? Meg H, good to see you as well. Thank you all for joining. I appreciate you. I was just saying it's a cold morning here. We got the heavy jacket on. But no, I'm excited to be back. The coffee's hot. Hopefully there's some good questions. And I'm excited to answer them to the best of my ability. Goblin Ninja, what's up, my guy? Very appropriate name for this stream. Considering my most recent book, and perhaps the book I am getting most known for, is all about goblins. You're on brand. You didn't even know it. Frog, you're doing good. That's what I want to hear, buddy. Juno over on Video App. Good to see you as well. Hello, hello. Meg H, you said very, very cold. You have to head into Boston a little later. Uh-oh. It's going to get even colder then. Get close to that cold North Atlantic. Hopefully it's safe driving for you. And hopefully a nice cozy morning. Humic, good morning to you as well. I appreciate you joining. How you doing today? Frog, you asked, do I remember my first story idea? I do. At least first novel idea. I think I wrote a short. I know that I wrote a short story for class even before then. But I guess first story idea and first novel idea. I remember both. They weren't the most original or very good. In fact, I think I have printed pages from my first novel attempt in middle school. Somewhere. I know I printed them out and put them in a folder, so we'll see. Maybe I can find them. Woogie, good to see you, buddy. Welcome in. Humic, great question. Basically, the way to be an author is to write stories and publish them. Those are the bare minimum requirements. In fact, a lot of folks, most authors, don't make much money from the job, and thus can't do it as a job. It's a hard gig. But I say the bare minimum requirements are to write stories and publish them. Everything from there is bonus. And it's about defining the goals that you want to achieve in the job. Goblin Ninja, 45 degrees Fahrenheit where you're at. Nice and chilly. I think, what are we? We're 36 here presently, but that's going to climb non-stop for the next few days. Woogie, how you been, my guy? Welcome back in. I hope you had a good weekend. Same for you, Frog. Meg, hope you had good weekends. Did anything cool? Let me know. Other name wasn't available, my friend. Happy Monday. Pleasure to have you. Said, how was my weekend? It was very good. Very, very restful. In fact, I'm off hockey for the next 3 weeks, which is going to be my longest break off hockey in about 3 years, so I'm very excited to relax. My body has a lot of resting to do. But no, it was a good weekend. I am recharged and ready to go. How about you, my friend? LXAP Nick, you said, have you ever tried to draw a manga or a comic? I have not. I can't draw very well. I can draw for fun, but it's certainly not good enough to make a full-on comic or manga. So I've never tried one, but I'd certainly be interested in it if I could find an artist willing to work with me. Goblin Ninja 7, you said, I think getting published is the hardest part of being an author, in my opinion. That's fair. That's fair. You do have a bit of a gatekeeper, a barrier to entry you have to pass, depending on what type of publishing you're doing. But part of that's why I love web novel sites like Royal Road or Archive of Our Own or Wattpad. They're wonderful for the fact that anybody can just write and publish on there. Really the proof's in the pudding in that respect. You write, you publish, and see if people like it, and then keep going. It's a beautiful way to become an author through sheer effort and consistency. I respect it a lot. Meg, you said 14 there, feels like 1. Whew! All right, you're winning for the coldest weather this morning, Meg. Congrats? I'm not sure that's an award to win. No, it sounds nice. Sung Moon, hello, welcome in. Glad to have you back. How you been lately? Woogie, all has been well, my friend. I hope the same with you. We're rocking and rolling here. I've been resting a little bit. Kind of a little bit of an end of year kind of recharge, and I'm feeling good. I'm ready to tackle some work this week and then probably be off for the rest of the year. Not from streaming, but from writing, day job. Other name wasn't available. You said, should someone with a really solid first series focus on promo for that or just write the next book? It depends on your type of publishing, but by and large, the best advice is to simply write the next book. It's never going to be bad advice. So that's always a good thing to do. Also, if you're talking about promo in terms of advertising and whatnot, it's often not worth it until you have multiple books out. So you said first series, so I guess there's multiple books in the series, and it could be worth it. But the simple fact is writing the next book's never a bad decision. Even like in traditional publishing, when an agent is doing edits on your manuscript or you're simply querying agents, etc., they always say, be working on that next book. It's the best thing you can do. LX, you said, what makes a story popular? What makes it special? What does it need to have? I think the simple answer to that question is it has to resonate with its audience. It can do that in an infinite number of ways. It could be beautiful storytelling, just beautiful prose. The actual sentence to sentence craftsmanship can be lovely. Or it could have really engaging characters. It could have a really, really interesting plot, a wonderful mystery that drags people in. These are all elements that make a story good. And you want to have basically as many of those as you can humanly fit into a story. That's kind of a great way to start. But if I had to identify one thing off the bat, it needs a strong hook. It needs in the first sentence, the first paragraph, the first chapter to get readers' interest, make them ask a question in their head they want answered, and then continue reading because they want the answer to that. I do another stream format sometimes where we read the opening lines of published books, and I identify what they do well, why they might have taken off based on their opening lines, and what the hook is in there. So we typically do those on Wednesdays, so if you tune in for one of those, we talk about this a lot. By the way, other name, Sung Moon and Melissa Lee, thank you for the heart me's. Appreciate y'all. Thank you very much. And Melissa for the tiny diny. Is it a Christmas one? Tiny Christmas. I love it. Thank you, Melissa. Rafi, good morning, my man. How you doing? Good to have you. Let's see. I missed some chat here. Melissa Lee says, good morning, Alex and crew. Melissa, good to see you. Welcome in. I hope you're doing well. Luffy Uzumaki said, do you want your books to become a show? I would love to. I would love to see that. That would be really cool. It'd be scary to have someone adapt, my stories into a different format, but I'd love to see it happen, especially because if it does happen, it means that my books are popular. People are reading them, people are loving them. So, yeah, I do want them to become a show. RLS, what advice were you referring to? I forget what I was saying, man. Just write the next book. Yes. It's the best thing to do. It can be hard, though. Once you're into sequel territory, you're following up on past successes. There's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, but pressure's a privilege. Sterling, good to see you, my guy. I hope you're recovering. I know you said you're a little bit sore. I hope you're recovering from that. But welcome back, man. Glad to have you. Joseph, you said, how long is the process of writing a book normally? It varies person to person. It could take years. It could take months. It could take weeks. I know some folks that could do it in about 3 weeks. I typically take 2 to 2.5 months. That's my happy place for writing a book. But I've had them take up to years. They're challenging things, but once you start working full-time as an author and your livelihood comes from publishing like mine does, you lose a little bit of the freedom to take a long time. So I do try to keep it to about 2.5 months per book. I aim to write 4 books a year, basically. Ames, you said, do you have people alpha read? Reddit is being really negative about it. I do have an ARC reader list, folks that get my books early for free, and they read it, they let me know what they think, they report any typos they find. So I have that, but that's a little bit more of last-minute changes, typo hunting, getting early feedback. It's a little bit different from alpha, where readers might affect the structure of the book on a deep level. I find that just once you get confident enough in your craft, you don't need people giving you book changing advice early on in the process. You can just focus in on telling your story as you know you can and need to. Tide and Tara, good morning. Welcome in. Pleasure to have you. Is it chilly down there where you are? A little bit up the coast from me? Because we're at 36 right now. Oh, it's chilly this morning. Also, Joseph, good question, by the way, I meant to say. And Ames, I appreciate them. Chris, you said, were there any times when you were writing where you don't know what to write next? Oh, yeah, definitely. But, it's kind of a good thing in a way. So often, as the author, you always know what's coming next in the story. Sometimes it's nice to not know what's coming next and just kind of blind faith, Jump out that airplane, go skydiving, metaphorically in the book, and not know what's coming next. I really enjoy that when I get to do it. I don't get to do it too often. But when I do, I enjoy it. Sorry if I missed your comment here, folks. We're getting through them. Rafi, you said it might be hard to believe, but you're tired. I'm sorry, man. Hey, brew some strong coffee. Join us over here. It's a good place to be. Other name wasn't available. Said, have you ever talked to anyone about the visual rights to your books? No, I've not. There's never been enough interest from a studio or a production company, etc. Y'all, I'm a small fry author. I have written a few books. They're all linked in my bio. They're out there in the world wherever you buy books or audiobooks. But I'm a small fry author. I'm still off the radar for the most part. I'm lucky to be able to do the job full time, and I'm right on the verge of not being able to do it full time. So we need to grow a bit more. Devin, you said, what are some bad ways to start a story? Bad ways to start a story? Boring. But in books, boring is bad. In storytelling, boring is bad. Particularly with characters, a piece of advice that I often give is make your readers love your characters or make them hate your characters. Just don't bore them with your characters. You need to make readers respond emotionally to your story. It's the most important thing you can do. Pixies X, you said, what is your most controversial book take? I think books are too long. That's especially in the lit RPG and fantasy genres. A little bit in sci-fi too. People are liking doorstops right now. They want those thick books. I think that books should be a little bit shorter, or they should be the length that they need to be to tell the story. Fun fact, 50, 60 years ago, the common length of a novel was much shorter than it is now, but the economics of publishing dictated that it was more cost effective to publish a longer book less often than more frequent shorter books. So the industry kind of pushed authors to expand their word counts from 60,000 words, 70,000 words, up to where we're at now of 100,000 ish. And then Audible, when audiobooks are a big deal for readers, every book is one Audible credit. So the longer the book, the more value, the more listening hours you get per credit. So that has also led to another increase in length. And you commonly see, especially in lit RPG, you see books at 140, 150,000 words, which is pushing 15, 16, 20 audio hours per credit. So just some interesting way economics has driven story length and not the importance of the story. Alexander the Great, welcome back, buddy. He said, my mother is an author, so this makes me curious. Do all authors just have successful kids or something? I hope so. I hope so. Razmatasmical. That's fun to say. Razmatazical. Have you ever put any fun colloquial language in your stories? Any examples? Yeah, I mean, I'm from the South, so I use y'all and howdy a lot. So I always try to work in a character who says those sort of colloquialisms. I've often made sweet tea a little bit of an Easter egg in my stories. I also wrote a character once who I challenged myself to make talk like Jeff Goldblum. And that was, I don't know if that was a colloquialism, but it was certainly interesting, I'll say that. Thank you for the follows, by the way, folks. I appreciate you. Ricky Dog Rhymes, good to see you, my guy. Welcome back. You said, how would I go about making an effective emotional moment? I would consider the stakes of the characters involved. I would highlight those stakes to the readers so they're aware of them going into the scene, and then I would put what the character wants in jeopardy and make them feel bad about it. That would at least be, a typical emotional moment. If we're talking more like payoff, then we would hearken back to the stakes that have been established earlier and see the character achieve the thing that they wanted and how they react to it. Those are the basic components of making like an emotional scene. Ice Onyx, you said, how do you make your names? I write fantasy primarily, so I consider the culture the character comes from. It's often a fictional culture that I've created, but I think about how that culture relates to or is inspired by real world cultures. Then I go and look at names from those cultures and look at the way they construct their names. Do they commonly use O's after U's? Do they use U's before O's? Do they repeat letters? Do they commonly have like a double G in the middle of the name? Stuff like that, and then I'll borrow those constructions to create my own character names. Good question. Peter H., would you say you need to enjoy books to write your own? I don't particularly enjoy reading. I think you should enjoy storytelling in particular, because that is what it is at its core. So that could be audiobooks, that could be movies, could be television shows. As long as you enjoy a form of storytelling, I think you're good. Morbidly a Beast said, if you introduce a nice, lovable, kind character and give them a gruesome death, is that cool? So it's a common trope for newer authors to want to get a good emotional impact by killing off a beloved character. That can work, but you have to consider the primary thing that your audience is looking for in your stories is satisfaction and enjoyment. So you have to remember that the story should serve that goal. Now, it can have low points and character deaths that are painful in the interest of achieving a satisfying end to the story, but you should never just kill off a character just to make it dramatic. It's a cheap emotional moment if it doesn't have a purpose. So as long as it has a purpose, that's what really matters. Hood 460. What words would you use to describe the sound of stepping on snow? It depends on the type of snow. Is it wet? Is it dry? Is it fluffy? That depends. That would determine what words I use. Like I'm from the East Coast, and we are infamous for having icy snow that freezes over. Not fluffy stuff like you have out west. So I tend to think of crunchy, slippery, almost like a slurry, where it's like half melted, then refrozen, then half melted again. So I'd think about what type of snow it is. What type of snow do they get in this particular area, and how cold is it? Is the snow in the process of melting, or is it cold enough that snow is fully formed and staying there? Oscar, LVP, what book have I written? I've written many books, my friend. Here's some of them. They're all available in ebook and audiobook, linked in my bio, or wherever books are sold. But I primarily write fantasy and lit RPG. So yeah, please check them out. This is my newest one. It's a comedy fantasy about goblins on a road trip to retrieve the Dark Lord's doomsday weapon so they can help him defeat those pesky forces of good. But they're goblins, so they mess it up. And it's basically a satirical series of misadventures as they get into increasingly awkward and ridiculous situations. Thank you for asking. Tide and Terra, welcome in. I know I said that already, but it's good to have you. You said, how do you balance dropping a reader into the action versus world building with Chapter 1? So I start, the advice that I subscribe to is to start the story as late as possible. So with as much going on as is possible without thoroughly confusing and thus losing your reader. Personally, you can do world building in different ways. I'm a fan of mentioning world building naturally when it makes sense to the character. So I think of it as a sprinkling in method, right? We're just sprinkling little grains of world building around. That doesn't mean that's the right way to do it. That's just one way to do it. There's nothing wrong with an exposition dump as long as it's done well and it's interesting and relevant. So I try to drop readers into the action, immediately present why it matters to the main character, and then sprinkle in world building as we go through. Raffi, you said, my story has a lot of one-time or limited-time characters, like most of them. Is that good or bad? Too many characters can confuse and distract readers. So you don't want too many named characters. In fact, the advice is typically to keep named characters to only what's necessary. Often what happens in a process, especially like the one you're doing, is folks will consolidate characters. So if a character shows up for just one moment and doesn't do anything else relevant, try to find another character who shows up for a couple moments and combine them together. You'll often see that, especially when books are adapted to film and there's less physical time to tell the story. Danka, you said that kind of looks like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I think you're referring to Wriggly Little Hands, which is a good thing because it does spoof Lord of the Rings at several points, as well as a couple other fantasy books that I absolutely love. We're very much leaning into those vibes. Thank you for the follows, everybody. They call me Wag. Said, ask an author anything. How you doing today, brother? I'm doing good, my friend. Thank you for being here. How are you? Pleasure to have you in. Syntax error. Every time I see that name, I want to say syntax terror. Over on Video App, you said, with the amount of characters made by people, how do you ensure you're not copying and pasting, even if you did not mean it? So this is something that I see a lot of newer authors worry about. The truth of the matter is, every author is influenced by and borrows from the other stories they read, watch, listen to, etc. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. As long as you're not copying exactly a character, it's not going to be an issue. Everything we experience, from just average day in the life to stories we read that stick with us, all of that inspires the next story we tell. So you can't and shouldn't block out that inspiration. Just don't straight up copy a character exactly. 7 Nilja over on Video App, you said anything, which is typically something that people say before asking a strange question, but 7, as long as you keep it appropriate, my guy. Ask away. Thank you, Bob. You said the art's really cool. I appreciate that. Well, shout out to Ivan Shavrin. That's my cover artist here. He did an incredible job. I've loved working with him, and I cannot wait to work with him more. Guy is an absolute menace with a pen. I love working with him. Sorry if I missed your question, y'all. Lots of questions flying by. I will try to get to them. If I miss it, please do ask again, so I can hopefully see it that time as it scrolls by. I saw someone else asked what books I write. Here's a lot of them, book ones at least. They're all linked in my bio if you want to check them out. But I think I've written 11 published books now and 13 unpublished. 11 published and 2 more unpublished. And I'm contracted for 3 more that I'm currently working on. So we should have more coming soon. 7, there's your question. Over on Video App, you said anything. And then asked a huge math equation, which is very funny because I am horrible at math. So my answer to that question is, oh God, please not again. Isabel Greenberg, do you do story first or characters first? I love making characters, but I can't make a good story. I'm more of a story first person, I think. But either one can work. You lean into what makes sense to you, what you enjoy, and build from there, is what I'd say. Oh, Kat, you said your husband is reading this to my kids. Can confirm the book is amazingly hilarious so far. I think you mean, you're talking about Wriggly Little Hands? Well, thank you very much. I'm so glad to hear that y'all are enjoying it, and thank you for taking a chance on it. I appreciate you. I got some really nice feedback online in a forum that I'm not normally in. I just was scrolling through and I saw someone was talking about my book, and that was very cool. So, y'all, I really do appreciate it. That's super kind. Thank you. Josiah R. Anderson, my friend, it has been a minute. Good to see you, though. Welcome in, buddy. How you been? Season, you said, how do you feel about the Dark Tower in the Stephen King verse? I haven't read Dark Tower yet, but I hear good things about it, so I should give it a try. Real Bassin, how would you know if you'd be a good author? I don't think you do. I think you just got to take a shot, you know? But that's kind of the joy of it, right? Dive in and see what happens. You never know. Syntax error over on Video App, you said, do authors have to keep a record of lore to stop continuity errors, and do they ever publish it? It depends. It goes person to person. I try to keep minimal notes because notes can bog you down. At least me, I can get distracted and spend all day in them when I need to be writing my story. But yeah, sometimes they keep authors will keep very detailed notes, and I have seen them publish them mainly on like their website and like additional materials. But yeah, that does happen. Season, you said you love The Far Wild. Oh my, have you read it? Have you read it, or you just like the art for it? Here, we'll pull it up big for a moment. There it is. Did you read it? Or you just like the art? Tide and Terra, you said opinion. Pick one. A morally gray grump or a quirky and fun character? Quirky and fun, for sure. I really like big personalities and characters that I write and read, so I find that more challenging and interesting. What about you, though, Tide and Terra? Isabel, you said, how do I make a book have meaning so that the reader gets something out of the book? So readers are going to find their own meaning. As long as it means something to you when you're writing it, as long as you're enjoying the act of writing it, the meaning's going to be there. And in fact, I find that readers find so much more meaning than I intended to put in it. And that's not any less valid. If someone reads a book and draws a conclusion from it, that's based on their experiences and their interpretation of the book. That's a valid interpretation. Sometimes it's things that you're like, yeah, I meant to put that idea in there. Other times it wasn't at all, and it surprises you. And sometimes it makes you learn things about yourself. It's interesting because, like, every time you write a book, you're a different person from when you write the next book. And going back and looking at them can remind you of, like, eras of your life. It's very interesting. It's kind of a deep conversation with yourself, writing a book. Sean, you said everyone pick up Warden, the Warden series. It's fun. Well, thank you, my man. I appreciate you. I do like that series. Sean's talking about this one right here. My finger gets cut off, but there we go. The purple one. Ronnie, welcome in. I don't think I said hello to you this morning, but good morning. Happy Monday to you. You said menace with a pin is how I'd like my art to be described as well. That was a good one, right? I was like, ooh, I'm cooking. I felt it when I thought of that one. I hope that people describe your art that way as well, Ronnie. And a pleasure to have you in. Dozens O Mangoes. I love that name. You said, as someone who would like to write a unique multi-novel series, could you suggest a starting point? Don't start with novels. That's always my advice. Everyone jumps to starting with novels, but that's like going from not running to running a marathon. Novels are difficult. They take a long time. Start with short stories. It's a little bit easier, and you learn everything you need to know for writing a novel. That is beginning, middle, end, characters, conflict resolution. These are all elements you need for writing a novel, but in a short story, you do them in less length, less word count, so it's easier to complete. Instead of sitting down to write a novel, it's going to take months. Sit down to write a short story, it's going to take a week or 2 weeks. It's great practice. If you're familiar with Dragon Ball Z, I consider short stories the hyperbolic training chamber of the story world, essentially. You train very efficiently, very fast, and it makes you a heck of a lot better for writing novels later on. Season, I am reading on mainly comments on TikTok, so yeah, if you ask here, I will see them. Other name wasn't available. You said hot take. I don't really like Stephen King. Hey man, fair. Very allowed to have your taste, you know. Everybody likes different things, essentially. Fat Frog said, do you think you should plan the death of characters, or do you sort of let the story lead the way? I prefer to let the story lead the way. That's kind of how I do things, but it's about what works for you. In most situations, I don't necessarily know which characters are going to make it, aside from like the point of view character, because it's a very difficult and elaborate thing to kill off a POV character. It's difficult. So I let the story lead for sure. Joshua Frady 688, you said, oh, it scrolled away. Where was it? There it is. What do you recommend helps getting into the mindset of your characters while writing? Ooh, I love this one. Good question. Okay, so for this, sit down with your characters one at a time, set a 10 to 15 minute timer, and hit them with interview questions, and then answer the questions in the voice of that character. It could be anything from when's your birthday, what's your favorite food, what's your favorite holiday, stuff like that. And just ask them questions and let them, and then just record their answers. It sounds a bit crazy. It is a little bit crazy, but so is writing books. So is inventing entire people and stories from scratch. I find that really helps me get into the mindset of my characters. Morning, you said, what author of, like, what did I write? What am I the author of? So I have not probably written anything you've heard of. Here's a lot of my books. I've published, I think, 11 books now. My most popular is still the Nova Online trilogy down here. And my newest is Wriggly Little Hands, which is a comedy fantasy about goblins on a road trip and all the ways they mess up while doing anything right, essentially. Turns out they're not the best minions, and someone should have told the Dark Lord that sooner. They're all linked in my bio, though, if you want to check them out. Isabel, you said, thank you, Alex. I've been pondering about that for weeks. Well, I hope it helps. Please, anytime I'm live, ask me questions. I'm always happy. No matter what we're doing on a stream, I love talking about writing. Tide and Terra, you said, I always have at least one goofy golden retriever character and one a-hole to spice up dynamics. Hey, that's a good mix. I like it. I think that's the golden retriever characters are my favorite, but you got to balance them out once in a while, too. Ivo Man 6, have you got anything traditionally published? And if not, are you still trying to do so? So I actually, Ivo, started my career in traditional publishing. In fact, I was represented by, at the time, the #1 agent in North America. And then a scandal in his personal life forced him to leave the industry, and overnight, myself and every other author represented by him were just dropped. Our books were no longer represented, and because he left the industry and wouldn't reply to emails, nobody could figure out which publishers he had sent our books to, and because other agents couldn't verify that, they wouldn't pick up our books for representation. So basically, me and like 20 to 30 other authors overnight had our projects completely ruined. So that was my start in traditional publishing, and that kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. I've been doing small press, self-pub, and then just straight to publisher deals, working with Audible or Podium, etc., selling my audio rights and then publishing the book myself ever since then. But I still query traditional publishing once in a while to go that route. But at this point, it's become a matter of, if I were to take on an agent, they would need to be bringing demonstrable value to me because I'm doing fine on my own. I wouldn't mind having an agent, but they need to bring something that I'm not already achieving on my own. Jared, you said, am I starting to incorporate the use of AI to help me write? Not at all. I've never used AI tools, and I do not intend to. I got into this job because I love the act of writing. I don't want a computer to do it for me. Fishboy, you said, what would you say is the most difficult part of writing for me? Editing. I hate editing. I hate editing so much. I don't enjoy it. I really don't enjoy it. This email never works at gmail.com. Hello, my friend. Welcome in and happy Monday to you. I appreciate you joining me here. You said, good morning, sir. How is the weather? Chilly, dude. I got the jacket on today. We're at 34. Holy cow, it's actually gotten colder since I started streaming. That's not, the sun's up, but it's colder. Yeah, it's a cold morning here in Houston. But that's all right. I like a little winter in my winter. Because it's going to be like 75 later this week, which is insane. How about you, my guy? How's your morning? Alex, hello, fellow Alex name haver, I suppose. How do you make a character overly intelligent without any hacks? Just light Yagami on steroids. It's difficult to write characters that are smarter than you are. That is something I am painfully aware of. I'm not great at writing the smartest characters. So I guess just give them, if you want to make them seem intelligent, give them information that they know that other characters and the reader don't know, so that it appears that they have figured it out ahead of time. I think that that's the best way to do it, because honestly, one of the actual limits that I found in writing is it's hard to write characters that are smarter than yourself. I don't have an answer for how to do it, essentially, other than, cheating, basically, by knowing additional story details and only letting that character figure it out, not readers or other characters. Slindy, good morning, my man. You said I managed to misspell wrote, W-R-O-T-E, as wrote, W-H-R-O-T-E this morning. But you also got hot chocolate. Yeah, it's a good start. A couple typos and some hot chocolate, we'll take it, my man. Sir Paint, you said happy Monday over on Video App. You missed last week. No worries, man. I didn't stream too much last week because my family was visiting. So welcome back. How you been? Hope you're doing well. ETL Cohen, you said, what do you think I can only create a world building for my world without creating a story warping it? I'm not sure what you mean. You said, let's say you're doing world building, and then when you apply the story to it, it warps the world building you've already done. Is that what you're saying? Because if so, that's fine. That just means you're a bit more of a story first person, and there's nothing wrong with that. Fat Frog, you asked, could you have a British agent who works in the UK as an American author, or does that not work? No, you could. There are some downsides to it, though. Primarily, the largest market for books is the US market. And to my understanding, if you had an agent, a literary agent in the UK, representing you as an author in America, all of the sales that agent makes to publishers in America, and thus your book sales, would count as foreign rights sales, and those get a different royalty percentage, so you would make less money for your sales. Don't quote me on that. That was accurate as of a couple years ago. I don't know if that's still the case, but typically you did want to have a literary agent in the same country as you. Bo, you said, how far through writing a book should you start promoting? Oh boy, I'm bad at promotion, y'all. I don't really know promotion very well. My advice, if you're self-publishing and you're paying for your advertising, your promotion, you shouldn't start promoting until you have multiple books out. The logic being ads are expensive to run, and if you run an ad and sell one book from it, it's not really worth it. You might break even. But if you run an ad, sell a book from it, and your readers like that and go, ooh, what else has this guy written? And you have other books ready to go for them to read, then your one ad might sell 2 books, 3 books, 4 books. Then the economics start to make sense. But if you're talking specifically just for at what point in writing should you begin promoting, I'd say finish the book and then worry about that. Put your full effort into finishing a good story and then promotion. Tide and Tara, you said, how do you feel about the new Kindle Ask AI feature they launched? I had a feeling this question was coming. I haven't had a chance to look into it too much. My initial reaction is this seems unnecessary and just more of giving over to the fact that AI has stolen all of my books and using it for data scraping, and I don't really know what to do about it. I'd certainly like it not to be the case, but the unfortunate reality at the present is if I want to be selling on Amazon, I have to play by their rules. And it might be something I don't like, but if they say this is how it is now, I can't really say no. I will join other authors in an effort to push back against it, but at the end of the day, they control the marketplace. I can obviously take my books elsewhere, but right now, the numbers that I see would imply a drastic drop in sales to not be on Amazon, as much as I hate to say it. This email never worked. She said 51 degrees in Tampa right now. All right, that's nice. It's a good, cool morning. We'll take that. It's 34 here in Houston, so buckle up. Typically, when we get a cold front, it hits you about a day later over there in Florida, so get ready. Get the jackets out. Carl, you said it's -9 where you're at. Woo! You're the winner for today so far. Is that Fahrenheit? If that's Fahrenheit, you're the winner today for the coldest weather so far. You also asked, do you play D&D? I do. I love D&D. Huge fan of it. In fact, D&D is very, very similar to writing books. I think you practice the skills needed to be an author every time you play D&D. It's one of the things I love about it. Ronnie, you said, my favorite response to AI is, I don't care to read words. No one cared enough to write. Ooh, that's good, Ronnie. I like that. Existence Enjoyer, you said, name 5 bands. Ice Nine Kills. Orbit Culture, Death Clock, Dark Divine, and TX2. You get a selection of metal today. That's what I was listening to most recently. Dalton Freeman, I think it just scrolled away as I was trying to read it. Who are my favorite authors, inspirations? My favorite authors, Terry Pratchett of the Discworld series, Douglas Adams of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I love Joe Abercrombie's work of the First Law trilogy. His newest book, The Devils, is out. I'm reading that now. Those are some of my top ones. I like Michael Crichton as well. I'm a big Jurassic Park and The Lost World fan. The movies are good. The movies are really good, but the books are even better. What about you? ZZZ, the animator, said, how would you write out the strongest trope in a story? Well, for one, you can see it. I've done it here in this 5-book series, 3 of which are out. Book 4 is coming in March, and Book 5 is finished, just waiting on the publisher. So you could see how I've done it there in the Paragon series, which I co-wrote with my good friend Luke Chemlenko. But for the most part, once a character is the strongest, or as we call it in Lit RPG, an OP main character, overpowered main character, the thing that you have to do is challenge them in ways that are not related to their physical strength. If they're physically if they're Superman, the way you make it interesting is by challenging them with things that can't be solved by their physical strength. And this is really true to the core of any character. What makes a character interesting is seeing their flaws, seeing what they lack, and then seeing how they grow to overcome it. So a character who's physically incredibly strong, a Superman-esque character, it's not that interesting to see them solve things with what they're good at. What we want to see characters do is grow and become better people and solve their problems through that. So long and short of it, if you have a really strong character, throw challenges at them that do not involve physical strength. Cam, you said, what do you think about One Piece? I think it's awesome that One Piece has been running so long and so many people resonate with it. It's really cool to see how wide the fandom is for One Piece. I'm not too deep into it myself, but look, anytime a story is resonating with a lot of people, I'm interested in why, and I'm excited for the creators of that story. Mango, you said, I have entire worlds in my head, but I just struggle with putting the ideas on paper or anywhere. A lot of folks struggle with this, Mango. Start in the smallest way that makes sense to you. It could be writing a scene, just writing one scene down. It could be dictating that scene into notes on your phone. Just try to do approachable, bite-size pieces of storytelling, and go from there. Because writing a novel is like running a marathon, and you don't go from not running to running a marathon, right? You go from not running to a jog here or there, and then running a mile, and then running a 5K, and then you build up to a marathon. So you got to start with something smaller before you get to something really big. Jack Ann, hello, good to see you. Welcome in. I hope everything went well this morning. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining. Kooky, hello to you as well. Welcome in. How you been? Good to see y'all. Lizzie, you said tips on how to write love stories, specifically if a young writer is making it, teenage writer. So Lizzie, romance is something I'm a little bit weaker at. But I used to ghostwrite romance novels for a couple publishers. So I need to dust off my skills, especially because I have a romance pitch out with a publisher right now. We'll see if they are interested in buying it. Basically, romance is about tension between characters. The two love interests, there needs to be tension. They need to have something that stops them from being able to just get along and get together right away. I think that tension is really important, with the intent of delayed satisfaction. You are essentially creating an idea that the readers want, the love interests getting together, and then you're just expertly delaying as long as possible that happening, and so that is extra satisfying when it finally happens. I'd say focus on that, and also just have fun. Make sure you have fun as you try to write it. Also, congrats on having an interest at writing at such a young age. It's about the time that I started, and it's a really powerful thing to get interested that early and use the free time that you have as a student to practice and get better. So good luck to you, Lizzie, and please ask any questions that you have. Not NA League support said, talk about how you got started. I assume you mean as an author. Well, so y'all, if you don't know, I'm author Alex Knight. Here's a lot of my books. They are all linked in my bio. They're on all the websites you can buy books or audiobooks on. The way that I got started specifically was I have been writing since middle school. I wrote a book in college, got an agent to represent it. It fell through, as I mentioned earlier. So after college, I would work a day job, 8 to 5 in office, and then I would go home, eat a quick dinner, and then go to the library, and I would write from like 8 p.m. to like 1 a.m. at the library every night. Monday to Thursday at least. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we got to relax. And I just kept working on that while I transitioned out of my office job into freelancing, and I would freelance write business copy, sales copy, donation pitches for nonprofits, etc. as a freelancer. That led to linking up with a couple publishers who were looking for ghostwriters to write romance for them. I transitioned into ghostwriting romance. After about a year of that, I linked up with a publisher who wanted to publish me under my own name. So I wrote with them and just kind of went from there. So long and short of it was I eased into it. First I freelance wrote business materials for companies, then I ghost wrote romance novellas and novels for publishers, and then eventually I got to write my own books under my own name. So kind of a step-by-step process, essentially. Leisha, good morning. Welcome in. Good to see you. What's where everybody's been sharing the weather today, so what's the weather where you're at this fine Monday morning? Dalton, Kyle Freeman, what are your thoughts on George R.R. Martin, such a popular series with no finished story? So he is famous for not having finished a Game of Thrones, or a Song of Ice and Fire, I should say, yet. I'm hopeful he will finish it one day, because they're very good books. But George R.R. Martin, before he wrote novels, wrote a lot of short stories very successfully. It's part of why I tell people to write short stories as a way to begin a career. It's a great way to start. Martin wrote a ton of short stories that were very well received. So he's obviously capable of finishing stories. Just, it gets difficult when you're deep into a book or a series, and when you have so much expectation and pressure on you. Obviously, I'd like him to finish the series. I really want to read the end of it, but I understand at some level why there's difficulty finishing it, but also at some point, you just got to give us an ending. So I'm hoping for that soon. That being said, he's an incredible author, and I really respect his talent. Y'all, if I missed your question, please ask it again. I apologize. They're just moving so quick, and I take too long to answer. Sir Kokyo the First, question: how do you plan your own stories? I do what I call a skeleton outline, where I basically make a bullet point per chapter, and I allow myself to write like 1 to 2 sentences of elaboration per chapter, and that's all I do. That to me is a nice mix between an outline where I know where the story is going, but it doesn't lock me into certain details. It allows creativity in the moment, specifically because I find that's my strongest aspect, is creativity in the moment. That being said, I've been experimenting a little bit with not having a plan and just writing as I go. We'll see how that works out. Zion22, or Ion perhaps, said, what genre do you write? I write fantasy and lit RPG. Here's a lot of my novels. It's fantasy up top and lit RPG down below. You can find these all linked in my bio. And this is my newest one. It's a comedy fantasy about goblins on a road trip to save the Dark Lord, and all the ways they mess that up, because, guys, they're goblins. They're not good at doing things or staying on task or, I don't know, being evil despite their best efforts. It's a very goofy story. Feel free to check it or any of my others out if you want. I appreciate it. That is how I make my living. Sir Paint, you said you have another question. Oh, no, sorry, you didn't. Seven asked this over on Video App. I have another question. Is cereal a soup? I suppose. I guess it depends on how much milk you put in it, right? I don't know. Lisa, you said it's chilly but sunny where you're at. Peter Wolf, you said, when you began writing under your name, did you use an agent first? So I had an agent at the very start of my career. I told this story earlier on stream. I had an agent at the very start of my career. For the most part, though, now I am working with small publishers like Portal Books. They've done a lot of my stuff. or I am pitching directly to publishers such as Audible, Podium, etc., and I am selling them the audio rights to an idea, and then when I get my advance from them, I go and write the book. And I self-publish the print rights, they produce the audio. So it's a little bit of a hybrid approach, but it's nice because basically I don't write a book until I have a publisher give me an advance for it. And know that they're interested in the idea and they're going to put marketing support behind it. It makes it a little bit safer. But no, I don't have an agent now. Like I said, I don't really. I'm interested. I would like to have an agent, I suppose, but they need to bring something to the table that I don't already have managed, because I'm doing pretty well. I'm surviving on my own, making a living doing this. So before someone takes 15% of all my profits, I'd like them to demonstrate what value they'd bring, because I know they can bring a lot of value. Dangerous, safe pictures. You said weather's fine for my area. Chilly and cloudy. Sounds good to me. A nice cozy morning. We'll take it. Kurtz, on Video App, you said, I struggle with sharing my hobby/interest of writing with my friends and family as a guy. I've been writing fantasy short stories for fun, especially romance, but I'm really shy and embarrassed about it. Well, first of all, totally natural, man. I know where you're coming from. I think a good thing and congratulations, by the way, on working on short stories. I love to hear that. It's such a good place to start. And also, props for being brave enough to write romance. A lot of guy authors don't want to write romance. If that's something you're interested in, rock and roll, my man. The good news with this is your friends and family aren't going to be your target audience. So you might actually, while you might want to share it with them purely from a, hey, look what I created, I'm proud of it aspect, know that they're primarily not going to be your readers. Your readers are going to be people that are avid readers in your genre. And a mistake that a lot of authors make starting out is expecting their friends and family to read all of their stuff. But if their friends and family aren't avid readers in their genre, that's a big ask. Asking someone to read your book just because they're your friend, if they don't like reading or don't like that type of book. So the good news is you're not missing too much by not sharing it with friends and family. Instead, try to find your audience online and get your stories to them that way. Sorry, I need to check this real quick. Okay. My wife is ill today, so I needed to check in on her. And we're good. Y'all, like I said, if I miss your question, please do ask it again. Chat's going quick, and I'm trying to get to them all. User 47581463384820 asked, do you write smut? I haven't yet. I've definitely done some closed door romances, so cut to black romances for publishers in the past. I don't have any plans to change that. I am writing. I do have a romance pitch out with a publisher right now, dark academia / romance. I don't think there'd be any smut in it though. I'd keep the spice level relatively low. Just what I'm most interested in. Lizzie, you said thank you for your tips. One last question: how many chapters / pages should a starting book have? So Lizzie, when we describe length of books as authors, we typically do it by word count, because pages can vary based on book format. An ebook page is a different number of words than a paperback page, is a different number of words than a hardback page. So that makes different length, based on what page format you're talking. But words stay the same length. So a typical book is around 80,000 words for commercial fiction. If you're going to move into fantasy, you're looking at around 100,000 words. So anywhere in that range is good. Now you can look up your specific genre to see what the norms are for length and write to that. That being said, write the story to the length that feels correct for you. I think that's the best advice, really. Elite over on Video App, you said, yo, man. Howdy. Welcome in, buddy. How you doing today? Ion, you said, what genres do you write when you do your own work? I write fantasy and lit RPG. So you can see them here. There's my fantasy up top and my lit RPG down below. I guess specifically, this is dark fantasy. A lot of combat and fight scenes. This is comedy fantasy. This is a thriller, kind of like Jurassic Park in a fantasy world. This is a system apocalypse lit RPG. This is a VR MMO lit RPG. If you're not in the lit RPG genre, those don't mean anything to you. And this is a sci-fi lit RPG. But they're all linked in my bio. Feel free to check them out. You can read more about them or get the pitch line for them, which might be more relevant than me just shouting genre tag words at you. How do I get inspired? Asked Shadow. Inspiration is 1/3 passion and 2/3 consistency. So when you are inspired and you're excited, follow that passion, like write furiously, pin on fire, burning up the page. But set a writing schedule for yourself and stick to it, because when that passion fades, and it does with every project, consistency is what keeps you working. And consistency is like building a streak. It feels to me like it builds up to passion once again. So it's just those two ingredients. It's passion and it's consistency. Ozone Chief, you said, I have finished works, but I don't know where to start publishing them. That's a difficult one, Ozone. There are different types of publishing. So you have to consider them and see which one you think makes most sense for you. So there's self-publishing. You can look into that. There's web novel publishing, where you publish on sites like Wattpad or Royal Road. There's small press publishing, where you would pitch your story to small publishing companies, typically online. And then there's traditional publishing, where you would query literary agents in the hopes that they're interested in your story and then want to work with you to sell it to a publisher. Those are your four main types of publishing. So feel free to investigate each of those to see which seems best for you. They all have pluses and minuses. By the way, thank you for the follows, everybody, and the gifts. I see Rami sent the GOAT Award. Slendy and Dalton re-upped on the stream team. Dragon Faith Press gave me a rose. Appreciate y'all. And a heart me. Megan gave me a heart me, and Slendy with the 3 tiny Christmas. Y'all, you're too kind. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Sir Paint, you said, I'm looking forward to reading The Far Wild next. Wriggly Little Hands has been hilarious. Well, thank you, man. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Thank you so much. The Far Wild is also funny. It's a little more thriller, a little less goofy than Wriggly Little Hands, but I think you'll have fun with it. It's one of my favorites for sure. Get Off My Lawn Guy. You said, I have a 90,000 word dystopian story, but it feels inconsistent. What's the best way to get past that? Practice. It's definitely practice. You'll be more assured of yourself and feel better about your stories just the more you practice and refine. Every first book is going to feel, your first few books are going to feel sloppy. It's because they are, probably. You're figuring things out. But just more and more practice. Write the next book, write the next story. You're going to get better and better. And then you'll build that confidence in yourself and in your storytelling. Nude Les said, I have some problems with pacing in my fantasy novels. Any tips for how to improve? If you're struggling with pacing, make sure that every chapter is important. It does something important and meaningful to move the story ahead, and then ideally pulls double duty. So not only should it move the plot ahead, it should also further meaningful things to the characters separate from the plot. It should further their growth or their journey as a character. As long as each chapter is doing something, basically 2 important things, moving the story ahead and moving the characters ahead, you should be okay pacing wise. I look at those things and see if you have any chapters that aren't doing that. That's where you get slow spots in the story. Nick Nuon, I've always been interested in dark fantasy. What's your favorite dark fantasy in media? I love Joe Abercrombie's grimdark books. The First Law trilogy, his standalone YA trilogy, The Shattered Sea. I think Joe Abercrombie is a great person to read, to get a vibe, to get a feel for dark fantasy in 2026. I guess 2025, because we're not there yet. But yeah, I really like his work for sure. Again, y'all, if I missed your question, I apologize. Please ask it again. I will try to get to it. I saw one from Jack Ann. Here we go. Do you think a Big Five will start breaking into lit RPG after DCC? Big Five being a Big Five publisher, DCC being Dungeon Crawler Carl, a lit RPG series that has blown up into the mainstream lately. Jack Ann, we are seeing publisher attention in lit RPG for the first time, a Big Five publishing attention. I think they'll try it. I think they're testing the waters out with lit RPG. The thing is, the lit RPG readers are a very different audience than standard readers. They read for different reasons. It's like trying to convince a romance reader to read a mystery novel. They read stories for the thing, romance people read for romance, mystery people read for mystery. Lit RPG readers read for different reasons than, typical fantasy, which a lot of the big five publishers looking to acquire lit RPG will be thinking in a fantasy mindset. That being said, we are seeing interest from them, and I'm hoping that it grows and grows more and more. Stuka Pilot. I can hear the sound of that scream on the dive already, which that won't make any sense to anybody if you don't know what a Stuka is. Sorry for the World War II nerddom. What if you only have one story you want to write? Nothing wrong with that, man. Go for it. Some folks just got one good story they got to get onto the page. There's nothing wrong with that. By all means, go for it. And you might find in the process that you got more than one story to write. Or maybe it's one and done. Nothing wrong with that. Look at To Kill a Mockingbird for a long time. That was the author's only work and massively popular. Lee, you said, is it a good idea to work on characters first when writing down ideas for a story? That's a personal thing for you, Lee. That's about what you are interested in. Some folks, some writers are character first, some are story first. It's really up to you. It's what you find most interesting. I'd say experiment with both. Burtis McCurdy, is releasing stories in progress online a good idea? It's one of the ways to publish. I respect it a lot as a method for publishing. It's certainly not a bad idea. It's really just about, is that how you want to publish? There's different ways to publish. Self-publishing, web novel publishing, traditional publishing, small press publishing. So look at all four of those and see which one is most interesting to you. Tazka, you said, as a lit RPG fan, we read for stat numbers going up. Hey man, number go up, right? It's the core dopamine hit of lit RPG. But, we can do that plus good characters and good stories. I think that's when you really, and that's like what Dungeon Crawler Carl did, right? Status World over on Video App said, oh my god, it's Andrew Tate. Which, y'all know what that means. Well, actually, nope, it doesn't count. It doesn't tick up the Asmongold counter. We don't have a Tate counter, thank God. We do have an Asmongold counter, but I jumped the gun and it's not going up today. Not yet, at least. Karl Marx Barbie says, what's your favorite Ursula K. Le Guin book? I have not read very much Ursula K. Le Guin. I know they're good books. There's just a lot of books out there to read. The sad fact of being an author is you don't have as much time to write as you would like, or to read as you would like, because I spend most of my day writing. That being said, I've recently explored Alex E. Harrow's work, and I've been really enjoying that. That's a new to me author that I think is doing great stuff. Tazka, you said I do have an Asmongold vibe when talking. Hey, 69 other people. Nice. Have thought so as well. So the counter continues to climb. Look, I made this because so many people kept mentioning it. When I had hair, people said I looked like Andrew Luck, but then my hair fell out, and now we're here. A sad story in 2 sentences. K Dizzle, how do you escape hitting the wall? I still do hit it. I still do, but it's consistency is what really helps. You have to make sure that the words that you're writing every day are a sustainable amount for you. My most ever words written in a 24-hour period is 16,000. I might have beaten that recently. I'll check my records. I think I hit 18,000 recently. That is not sustainable. I typically do 2,000 words a day because writing is not a sprint, it's a marathon. I have to write books consistently, so I need to be able to write every day and not exhaust myself. So I escape hitting the wall by writing a consistent amount of words each day that I'm scheduled to do so, and not pushing it too far. You don't want think of it like working out, right? If you're practicing for a run or to run a 5K, every practice run shouldn't push you all the way past the point of exhaustion. They should instead feel comfortable and be within your comfort zone. And then every once in a while you push it a little bit, but your average run shouldn't be absolutely exhausting, you know? Malort Lover, welcome back. Welcome back. You said that's why I listen to audiobooks. What was that in response to? I forget what we were talking about. Um, Chunkernaut said, I have a graphic novel fully laid out. To me, searching for a graphic illustrator is a struggle. Yeah, I could see that, my guy. I could see that. Honestly, I wish I had advice for you on where to find someone like that, but that is outside my realm of experience. It sounds like a struggle, though. A4 Real said, how to expand your vocabulary and way of writing last minute. Is it possible? Read widely. Read a lot of books. That's the best way to do it, I think. You're going to encounter more words there used in different contexts. And when you encounter a word or a phrase that you don't know, look it up. I know it can be hard to pause from the flow of reading to like pull up a dictionary, but just read a lot and look up words you don't know. I think that's the best and easiest way to not only expand your vocabulary, but learn the vernacular that is popular in publishing these days. Because the truth is, you don't need a big vocabulary to write. Your objective is to communicate effectively with your readers in interesting ways, and just knowing a whole bunch of different words isn't necessarily the way to do that. It can help, but ideally you don't want to sound like when you're writing you were just pulling up a thesaurus and coming up with strange words to have a big vocabulary. Robert, you said, I've written short stories that don't require a lot of world building. Rock on, man. Congrats on doing the short stories. That's the right place to start. A lot of folks don't know that. What are they about? Tell me about it, man. Let's see. Ava, you said, I'm starting my third novel and I don't know what to make those first 5 pages because agents think there's a part 2 coming. But I can say that, yeah, those opening pages are tough. Is it a third novel? Is it the third in a trilogy or in a series? Or is it a third standalone novel? Because that determines how you open the book. Nick Nuon, have you played Baldur's Gate 3? That game was my first touch of D&D and got me so invested in it. Yeah, rock on, man. I love that game. I got hundreds of hours in it. Baldur's Gate 3 is amazing. If you can't meet up with some friends for a D&D session, which can be challenging, Baldur's Gate 3 is a great place to start. I'm a huge fan of it. I love the storytelling of it. Pancake, you said thoughts on Kindle's AI feature. If you're talking about the new one they're rolling out, the Ask This Book feature, from what I've seen so far, I'm not a fan. I'm worried about it. I don't love it. But I make my living through selling books, and unfortunately Amazon controls darn near a monopoly on the ebook market. I would lose probably 80% of my sales overnight if I left Amazon. So I'm not happy about it. I will join other authors in doing what we can to, push back against it. But unfortunately, it is Amazon's sandbox, and if I want to play in it and continue selling books that way, I got to play by their rules. But I'm hoping they reconsider it. Mithril, what's your opinion on the story build of Stephen King's The Dark Tower? So I haven't read The Dark Tower yet. I need to, but like I said earlier, it's just there's a lot of books in the world and not as much time as I'd like to read them. But I'd like to do it. I'd like to get to it. Sept JJ said, how do you improve your writing? English is my second language and my sentences can be awkward. Well, first of all, Sept, rock on for being able to speak and write in a second language, man. That's awesome. I'm proud of you for that. I study several languages as well in my spare time and took a few in school. I'm nowhere near the proficiency you've demonstrated right here. Honestly, the best way to improve your writing is simply to write and then read a lot of books in English. And then get somebody to give you feedback, a native speaker, a native reader to give you feedback on it. But the beautiful thing that I found about writing is simply you practice by doing. That's why I advocate for short stories so much. They're a great way to write a complete story but not waste months on it, and then you can get feedback and improve. So I'd say write short stories and get feedback from native speakers and readers on how your English is. That being said, don't let the fact that you're not a native English speaker stop you, because every story in the world's already been told, but it hasn't been told by you. Your perspective, your experiences, your diverse background is what makes the story interesting, because you could tell it in a way that we wouldn't expect. And I think that extends to English as a second language. You might phrase something in a way that a native English speaker wouldn't. That's not always a bad thing. In fact, that can be a very interesting thing. You think about language differently than someone who speaks English natively. That can be a superpower. Feel free to lean into that. Liz on Video App asked, how do we develop characters? It can be a challenge, Liz, but what I like to do is sit down and interview them. Come in with a list of questions, ask them to your character, and then write down their answers from their perspective, in the voice of the character. I think that's a great way to kind of flesh out characters. Also, I'll pick a famous actor that I'm interested in or a famous character from a show, and I'll look at their personality and their mannerisms, and I'll use that to model my own version of that character. One of my more popular characters in my books, I just challenged myself to write him like Jeff Goldblum, just like kind of weird and trail off and get distracted and whatnot, and readers loved it. So feel free to take real life inspiration as well as just sit down and interview your characters, Jared Bates said, what's your favorite fantasy book? My favorite is The Lord of the Rings. Hey, Lord of the Rings. Love it. So good. I'm rereading Fellowship right now. Lovely story. My favorite fantasy books, I'm a big Joe Abercrombie fan. From your neck of the woods, it sounds like, based on your spelling of favorite with a U. You're probably over across the pond. I love Joe Abercrombie's work. For fantasy specifically, I love Raymond E. Feist, for throwing it back a little bit. Big fan of the Dragonlance novels by Tracy Hickman and Margaret Weiss. So those are some of my favorite fantasy ones. Thank you for the follows, by the way, everybody. I appreciate you. If you don't know, I'm author Alex Knight. These are my books, at least my book ones. I think there should be 10 or 11 published novels now. I sometimes lose track. But they're all linked in my bio if you want to check them out. Please do. That's how I support myself. I'm a full-time author, so selling these bad boys is how I keep putting food on the table. So if you want to support me, please check them out. Might find a good story in the process. And I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m. Central. So please, come on by. Always happy to have you. Always happy if I'm live. I'm taking questions. And hey, on Fridays, by the way, we make fantasy maps live on stream. So make sure you come back on Friday, because that's going to be a fun one. I always enjoy doing that. But for now, we have a few more questions. Malort Lover, you said Joe Abercrombie on audiobooks is so good. I love Feist, though he kind of dropped in quality. I haven't read Feist stuff recently. I'm more thinking about like Magician Apprentice, Magician Master, kind of his opening books. But yeah, Stephen Pacey, I believe, does the audiobooks for Joe Abercrombie's work. And he is top notch, man. He knows what he's doing. Jaden, you said, Alex, what's your opinion on musical numbers in books? Like having songs in books, like Tolkien did. I'm not the biggest fan. I think it's hard to make it translate the song to written to having the reader read it and get the song. That being said, it's basically poetry at that point, right? And I'm a big fan of poetry. I think if it's something you're passionate about, go for it. Put it in there. Because as a reader, I don't come to a story. I should say it this way. I come to a story interested to see what the author wanted to write. And if what you want to write is a story that involves song, go for it, man. I want to see it. Make it happen. As long as you're excited about it, I think you can make it good. Kurtz over on Video App, thank you for your question. You said, how do you go about phrasing and structuring internal monologue? I like writing dialogue and physical descriptions, but struggle with writing my main character's thoughts and musings without sounding lame or soapboxy. If you're worried about that, Kurtz, I would just give it a little less time in the internal thoughts. I think a lot of authors have a tendency, I definitely fall into this category. I have a tendency to think that to worry that the readers aren't going to get what I'm trying to hint at or what I'm trying to say. And so I will repeat it several times. And in every instance that I've gotten feedback, people are like, oh yeah, I got that the first time you mentioned it. You're worried about it too much. So I would say if you think your monologues, your internal musings sound soapboxy, or they go on too long, just shorten them a little bit and trust the reader to get it. That's typically the best way to handle it. I think also it's an easy thing to feel self-conscious about, so don't worry about it too much. Let feedback from readers tell you if you're doing it poorly, or from an editor or a friend, etc. Because we're our harshest critics. Sonny, you said first time seeing you. What kind of books do you write? Well, welcome in, Sonny. It's a pleasure to have you. I write fantasy and lit RPG, so fantasy up top, lit RPG down below. They're all linked in my bio if you want to check it out. My newest is Wriggly Little Hands. It's a comedy fantasy about goblins on a road trip to save the Dark Lord. But they're goblins, so they're not the best at that. They're easily distracted. They get up to some mischief in there. It's very goofy. Feel free to check it out if you want. All my books are for sale, basically anywhere books are for sale, and also linked in my bio. Wagon Tails Mike, that's a fun name. You said, I just started reading the Wheel of Time series without doing my research. Seeing it's around 15 books long. Yeah, it's a long one, man. It's a long one, but look, it's a good one too. So enjoy. Welcome to the start of the journey. Jack Ann, you said, what happened to the 3 strands of hair that Galadriel gave to Gimli? They became a heirloom. Incredible play on words, Jack Ann. Ohio said, how do you add music into your writing? So but the only way I know is to physically write the lyrics of the song into your writing. It's not necessarily is the best way that I would want to do it, but I don't know how to do it better than that, you know? You just kind of have to describe what the tune of the song is and then give some lyrics. I think this is why a lot of folks avoid putting music in their writing, because it's, you know, it's challenging in that regard, and it might not come across as well as we like, you know? Oh, thank you, Tide and Terror. Oh, no, it was Slindy. Thank you, Slindy. I appreciate the reminder. Folks, please, if you're having fun, give me a follow. I'd love to see you on my next stream, which will be Wednesday at 7 a.m. Central. And yeah, check all my links in my bio if you want to check out my books. I appreciate you. Masked Bunny asked, how do I plan out my books? I do what's called a skeleton outline. At least that's my term for it. I do a bullet point per chapter, and then I allow myself to elaborate 1 to 2 sentences per bullet point and no more. That allows me to plan where I want the book to go in a general sense, but allows plenty of room for creative freedom, because I find in the moment is when I have my best ideas. My funniest jokes, my best plot twists always come in the moment. I can't plan them ahead of time. That's what I do. But there are different ways. Some folks don't plan at all. Some folks plan extensively. I think you kind of have to try all 3 to find out what works best for you. Destroyin' Dan, welcome back, buddy. You said you're going to the last baby check for the twins. Hey, man, fingers crossed. I hope everybody's happy and healthy. We are thinking of you and your family. So welcome back, man, and I hope all goes well. Pleasure to see you. Elijah said, have you ever read Shadow Slave? And if you have, what do you think of his contract? I don't believe I've read that, Elijah. There's some book a long time ago that I feel like has that name, but I don't think it's the one you're talking about. So I apologize. I don't think I've read it. Simon Writing Stories said, I wrote a short story about a guy who hated the Beatles and the lyrics would send him into a rage. That's one way to have music in your writing, huh? You can see that. Jake Hartman over on Video App. Good morning, my guy. Good to see you. I hope you're doing well. We've been playing a little game today, sharing what the temperature is where you're at. So what's the temperature in your location? The coldest we've had today, I think, was -9 Fahrenheit. I'm at 35 Fahrenheit myself. IDK asked, I'm interested in writing and want a hobby like that. How should I start? Because I don't really know. IDK, that's not my answer. What you should do is just sit down and try writing a scene or just a moment, maybe a chapter. Just let yourself explore the world of the story in your head, or just a world in your head, and just write down a little bit. Have fun with it. Focus on entertaining yourself by doing it. I think all writing hobbies or careers start there. Write a story that's exciting to you. And it doesn't have to be a complete story off the bat. Take baby steps. Just write a scene, or maybe you have a cool setting in your head. Write as long as you want of a character walking through that setting and describe what they see, feel, hear, smell, etc., etc. But write to entertain yourself before anybody else. That's where it starts. Destroying Dan, you were at -14 the other day. Whoo! Cold. I'm jealous of all y'all that get actual winter. We're going to be back up in the 70s this week, man. Ain't no winter going on here. Shimmer, you asked, how do I build side characters? Ah, Shimmer, but that's where the fun is. Main characters have to have purpose and arcs, and they got to do important things for the stories. Side characters get to just do whatever the heck they want for the most part. I have the most fun with my side characters. What I would do for side characters, pick something that seems interesting or challenging to you, and challenge yourself to write them in a side character. So like one of mine that I really liked, I came up with the concept of she's really good at her job, but she's really lazy and doesn't want to do her job. And so every scene she was in was a balance between like her complaining about having to do her job, finally bucking up and doing it, and then just being the most proficient, impressive person you possibly could at it. And everybody was like amazed, and she was like, whatever, I need to go take a nap. I don't care that you're impressed. And she became a really fun character. So just come up with ideas like that. Short, one-sentence ideas, and make your side characters embody that idea. I think it's a really fun way to do it. And it's really freeing to write side characters, in my opinion. Good question, though. I like that one. Elliot 0677 asked, any tips for writing for games like D&D? Yeah, I mean, I think writing for D&D is just like writing books, honestly. My tips would basically be write to entertain yourself first, and don't always make the next logical jump in the story. And instead of just letting the story kind of flow, sometimes pause it and go, what's the craziest thing that can happen here? And explore that for a little bit. You might go, that's too crazy, I'm gonna go with something else. But just make sure you stop at different points and kind of explore other concepts. And in fact, since we're talking about specifically in D&D, I sometimes will use dice rolls in my writing. I will, if I don't know what's going to happen next, or I have multiple ideas, I'll roll a die for it, and see what happens. It's a fun way to keep it fresh and interesting. Oh, IDK, you're at negative 16 Celsius in Finland. Well, let me convert real quick. Let's see. That's 6. Oh, hold on. I need a negative on there. Negative 16. So that's 3 degrees Fahrenheit. That's pretty cold, man. That's pretty cold. Destroy and Dan, you said, Alex, do you have a lit RPG? My man, I got a lot of lit RPGs. This is a 3-book series. This is a standalone. This is a 5-book series, and they're all lit RPG. Feel free to check them out, man. They're linked in my bio. Sicky said, one question. How do writers manage to piece together a well-written story and have a unique plot? It's practice. It's really just practice. You get better the more you practice. So start with short stories. They're shorter, they're quicker, they teach you everything you need to know about writing a novel. But start there and then just practice over and over and over again. And it's like anything, you get better. So my favorite thing about writing is, if you want to get better at it, read a lot of books, write a lot of stories. Boom, that's the recipe. Godzilla says 7 degrees Fahrenheit here in upstate New York. Ooh, that's pretty chilly, man. That's pretty chilly. You got any snow to accompany that, or is it just that weird place where it's just really cold but really dry, no snow? Let me know. I love the snow in upstate New York. Huncho Man 85 said, I really struggle with finding stuff to write about, even for short stories. I just can't seem to get into it or think of anything I'm interested in. You might be putting too much pressure on yourself then. Maybe try not to have a plan. Just kind of let the writing take you where it's going to go, you know? The good thing about writing is, what you do in your first draft doesn't have to be the story. You can cut stuff off the beginning, off the end. You can change parts, swap them around. So you can start anywhere. So maybe just try letting your creativity just guide you. No plan, no expectations. Just sit down and write and see where you go. I think that's a good way to start. T, you said, what's 2 times 63 to the 38th power? You did say ask you anything. Yeah, I did. And my answer to that is, I have no idea. I am terrible at math. So there's my answer for that one. Fat Frog asked, who's my favorite villain? Favorite villain. That's tough. I like a lot of villains. I think Megamind's a very interesting villain, though arguably the hero of his movie, so not, a bit of a cop-out there. I will say, instead of a specific villain, I like villains that believe what they're doing is for the right reason and that they are the one that has to do it. Every character is the main character of their own story in their head. And I like villains that are absolutely convinced of their righteousness and the necessity of what they're doing. That's what I find most interesting in villains. Kurtz, over on Video App, you said, acknowledging women read Lit RPG too, but having written in Lit RPG, do you do anything different in writing for male versus the male target audience versus writing for women, or is it a non-factor for you? It's a good question, Kurtz. I like to think that my books are very readable by both men and women. I don't write for either one specifically. I think that it can distract you to write for only one target audience. Instead, I think you should focus on writing a story that's entertaining to you with fully realized characters that are more than just their gender. I think if you follow that recipe, your books are going to naturally appeal to all people. And I think that's a good place to be. I do like to emphasize character growth more than just story in my Lit RPG, which I think makes them a bit more palatable to a fantasy audience than just a Lit RPG audience, where they might be more focused on simply number go up, characters get stronger. So I think that makes my Lit RPG a little more broad. That being said, I don't have any romance in my Lit RPG, not really. Something I want to work on in the future, because I think that makes it a more well-rounded story in general. Not so much that it dominates the book, but have a little bit in there. Don't think it's a bad thing. Good question, Kurtz, over on Video App. That was a good one. Yenmur, you said, how do you spread a theme around in your story so that the world kind of encompasses it? That's a good one. That's a very good one. So, when you want themes in a story, what you should do is think about how those themes affect the actions of the characters, and then as well, mention the theme out loud. It might not explicitly state, this is my theme, but if your theme is perhaps honor and dishonor, make the characters care about those concepts, right? And if they are driven by those concepts, I can't do this because it would dishonor my family. Or if I do this, I would win honor for myself. If you make those ideas what drive your characters, then the theme is going to naturally absorb into the story, and the story will become a product of it. So I think it's a very holistic thing. But make your characters care about the theme, and the story will inevitably follow. Huncho Man, you said, do you have any cool places to post stories online besides Reddit? Have you checked out web novel sites like Royal Road, Archive of Our Own, and Wattpad? Royal Road's probably the one I'm most familiar with. Check those out. Web novel sites are great. Thank you for all the follows, by the way. I see a lot of those today, man. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for joining me today. Let's see. I'll take a few more questions here, and then I got to run and get to work for the day. But I appreciate y'all joining me. Let's see if we can wrap up a few questions here. Razvan said, is a 400-page story good for the first book of your series? So Razvan, typically we measure based on word count, because pages will vary in length based on if it's a paperback, if it's a hardback, if it's an ebook. So authors typically give a story length by word count. So depending on your genre, 80,000 to 100,000 words is a good place to be. That being said, I think what should really determine the length of the book is the amount of space you need to tell the story. Focus on telling the story and the time it needs to be told first, and then worry about word count. Jolisa, just write in some yearning and you'll be great. Yearning is powerful in stories. Having a character who wants something, who yearns for it, is a very powerful emotion, because we can all relate to that. I had a teacher in college, a Pulitzer Prize winning author, who his entire class, his 15-person upper level class that you had to apply and be accepted to, was an entire semester on how to write yearning. It's a very powerful emotion. 100,000 words sounds like a lot. It does, and it is a lot. It is. It's a lot, especially if you're just jumping in trying to write it from the get-go. That's why I say ease in. Start writing short stories before you write novels. Short stories would typically be 2,000 to 15,000 words. that's a much more approachable goal than writing a full 100,000 word story out off the bat, you know? That's another reason that short stories are so valuable. Cannibal Panda, funny name, said, how many times do you use size? I unfortunately use that too much. Yeah, everybody has writing tics that they use too much in the story. What's important is to identify what they are. Often you'll need an editor or a friend reading the book to tell you that, because we become blind to the things we do too often. And once you're aware of it, just make sure that you find alternate ways to express that idea, essentially. Evil Kotone Shiomi said, what's Asmonbald doing here? Hey, folks, we got it. We got it. Hold on, let me grab it. The Asmongold counter goes up again. All right, y'all. Let me update it here. Up to number 70. We're finally off the funny number. There we go. It climbs once again. Up to 70. Yeah, celebrate, right? General Publications Coloring said, do you think the demand is mainly for short stories or mainly nonfiction how-to style books? I think they're completely different things, General. I think that there are different areas and there's a demand for both. With any genre difference, how in demand they are depends on how healthy the genre is. So I think short stories are always a bit hard to make a living off of, to make money off of, but they're great practice, and they can be submitted to plenty of contests out there to win some acclaim and get practice. Jake Hartman says, is that a quote from Seinfeld, Jake Hartman, over on Video App? Because that feels like it is. It's very good. Cannibal, you said I'm more handsome than Asmongold? Thank you. I'm flattered. I appreciate it. Andrew, I have not read the Dark Tower series. I would like to. It's a lot of time writing in the day and not as much time for reading, but I'm always reading something in the background. I would like to read the Dark Tower at some point. For some reason, that's the third time it's been mentioned today on stream. Very popular. I mean, Stephen King's a big name, so I guess that makes sense. PBJ, here's an interesting one. And actually, hold on, I'll answer that in a moment because that's going to be a bit of discussion. First, Finger Guns, you said, have you ever written anything like a D&D campaign? Yeah, for sure. In fact, if we go to my books, this one reads a lot like a D&D campaign, and I'd say this one does too. But this one, Wriggly Little Hands, my most recent, a reviewer described it as a D&D campaign where nobody put any points into intelligence, and the DM is taking a shot after every chapter. I was absolutely flattered by that description. So if you're looking for D&D campaign type stuff, this is probably the most similar to it, if you like the antics and ridiculousness. And they're all linked in my bio, and they're available for sale wherever books are, including audiobook, paperback, and ebook. Okay, PBJ, you asked, how do you show strength well in a character without them fighting? So strength comes in a lot of ways. Strength can be competency. It can be knowing you're good at your job, or knowing you're good at taking care of your family, and not needing to brag about it, just doing it, just taking care of business. That's one way to show strength. Another way to show strength is to show people persisting in the face of overwhelming odds, not letting despair or low points stop them from going after what they want. There's many ways to show strength without it being physical fighting strength. So I would think about that and have your characters show strength in the ways that you think they are most strong. Slindy, you said, I don't think I've ever read anything by Stephen King. You should give it a try. He's popular for a reason. My man can write, for sure. Titan Terror, you said 10 out of 10. I definitely recommend Wrigley. Well, thank you very much. Y'all, Titan Terror is talking about the goofy book that I was just mentioning. This one here, Wriggly Little Hands. It's probably my favorite book I've ever written. It's very fun. If you like comedy, if you like fantasy, if you like wacky goblins, or D&D campaigns that are off the rails, check it out. Cannibal Panda, I want to have distinguished dialogue styles for my different characters. How do I do that without making them sound the same? just so here's Cannibal. If you're having trouble with this, speak out loud the lines of dialogue your characters are going to say. Think about it that way, because dialogue is not we speak often without perfect grammar. We speak with contractions and colloquialisms and slang. So that's one way to make characters sound different. Another is to give them little things that they do. Maybe one character always trails off at the end of sentences, or has a tendency to start on one idea and then jump to another idea in the middle of that thought. These are all ways that characters can sound different. It just comes down to how they speak individually. If you'd like to do some research on this, look up interviews with different people, politicians, actors, comedians, authors. Look up interviews with these people and pay attention to how they speak personally and all the different ways that they do it. There you go. You can imitate those styles. That's a hard name to read. Schizophrenian Temple Pog. Are you self-published? I am self-published as well as small press, and a little bit of publishing with places like Audible and Podium, who I guess you would call traditional publishing, but not among the big 5 traditional publishers. I'm truly a hybrid author. I publish in a lot of places in a lot of different ways. Yeah, I am self-published along with published through publishers, and I've even done a little bit of like web novel type stuff. Finger guns. Do I read my own audiobooks? No, I don't. That would be quite a task. I've been very fortunate to have professional narrators do my audiobooks. And man, oh man, every time I listen to their work, I just am amazed at what they can do and reminded that I would not do a good job narrating my own books. I'm so lucky to have worked with so many wonderful professionals to produce those. Jane asked, do you think the first-person POV, point of view, can work well for sci-fi fantasy? Yeah, 100%. First person, totally. Typically, whatever specific genre and subgenre you're writing in has a preference of third person versus first person. That being said, I wouldn't pay attention to it. Write what makes sense to you. Thank you for the follows. I appreciate y'all. Titan Terra, you liked the interview tip? I'm glad it helped. Rock on. Magognos says, what's an author? Assuming you're asking genuinely, an author is someone who writes and publishes stories. Specifically, I write books in the fantasy and lit RPG genres. You can find them all linked in my bio. The Angry Writer said, is Southern Fried Gothic a good title for my horror novel? I like the Southern and the Gothic element, but Southern Fried Gothic makes it sound a little bit comedic. It feels like a play on like Kentucky Fried Chicken. So I would go for something darker in tone and a little more ominous. It's a good start, though. Titan Terra, you said, I'm struggling through a scene in which chaos is going on. Any tips? If you want to really lean into the chaos, make the actual writing of the scene as chaotic as the events that are happening. Let the readers get a little bit confused by perhaps having the writing not be completely clear. Have the focus of the scene jump from thing to thing to thing. Have characters begin to say something and then something else happens interrupting them and they don't get to finish their thought, and we then focus on that other thing that just happened. Feel free to let the scene be as chaotic as you want it to be, essentially. I think it's a good way to make the readers experience the chaos. Try that out and let me know how that works for you. Ash, the GM, said, how do you feel about villains that aren't misunderstood but just plain evil for the sake of it? Honestly, I like it. I like it, Ash. I think that I don't think they should be evil for like, I am evil. You know, like the evil shouldn't be their motivation. Instead, they should believe that what they are doing is something they have to do, and they are fully committed to that cause. Now, they could know, like, hey, I'm not the best guy in the world, but I think they should have a realistic motivation for what they do. Doesn't mean they're misunderstood. It just means that they fully believe in their purpose. Almost that they believe in their purpose so much they don't really care if it's evil because they believe it has to be done. Every character is the main character of their own story in their head. Keep that in mind. Titan Terra, you said that advice boils down to be ADHD for that scene. Pretty much. Taylor, is it too cliche to start with amnesia? I mean, you could do it. I don't think it's too cliche as long as it's done for a reason. The truth about cliches, guys, is that they are cliches because they work. we like them. Same with tropes. Tropes exist because people like tropes. The difference between a good and bad cliche or trope is execution. It doesn't matter. Anybody out there that likes romance is excited for the next enemies to lover trope book, right? But the thing is, it has to be done well. People get mad when tropes are executed poorly. When they're executed well, they're like, yeah, that was great. I loved that. So it's really all about execution. Slindy, you're right. Thanos is a good example of a villain who believes so totally in his purpose. He doesn't care about the ends or the means by which he achieves his end. That's a great example. Chana26 over on Video App. You said, "What do you do here? I'm new." Well, I'll do the introduction again. Welcome in, Chana. I am author Alex Knight. I write fantasy and lit RPG books full time for a living. And on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings, I stream where I answer your questions about books, writing, publishing, etc. Or on Fridays, we make fantasy maps live on stream. So make sure to tune in for that one. It's always a fun one. And here are my books. They're all linked to my bio. If you want to read them, please give them a look. They're for sale anywhere ebooks, paperbacks, and audiobooks are sold. Oh, Slindy, thank you for the woolly hat, my friend. I'm going to go put one on after stream here. A little bit cold today. Maybe not woolly. It'll be a beanie cap, but still. Thank you very much. Y'all, I think I need to wrap it there. We've gone for about 2 hours today. I need to get to the rest of my work. I need to write more books so that I can sell them and keep going. But thank you for joining me today. If you've had a good time, please do give me a follow so I can catch you on the next one. And check out my books. I think they're pretty good, and I think you might enjoy them if you check them out. So please do. See what you think. But otherwise, folks, thank you for joining me here today. Wonderful questions. As a reminder, I will be live again Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. Central. Not sure what we'll be doing, but anytime I'm live, no matter what the stream format for the day is, I'm open to questions. So please do ask anytime you want. Sage Meadow over on Video App, you said, "One last question." Go for it, my guy. I'll do my outro, and then we'll see what your question is. But for the moment, thank you very much to Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com for the use of his songs Farm, Manor, Cottages, and Northern Glade, which have provided our background music today. As well, a special thanks to community member Raffi the engineer. You might have seen him in chat today. Raffi composed and produced our 5th background song, Midnight at the Round Table, specifically for stream. I appreciate you, Raffi, man. I'll never get over that. That's so cool. As always, a shout out to my excellent moderators, Melissa Lee 28, Raffi the engineer, One Happy Harpy, the Seth Ward, other name wasn't available, aka Slindy, Leisha T, and Aaron Winnick. I appreciate y'all very much. Thank you for doing your job. You do an excellent job of it. As well, thank you to chat. Y'all, you don't need much moderation. You bring good vibes every time we're here, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. No, Sage, you said you don't want to hold me up. No, go for it, man. You can hit me with the last question of the day. No worries. Sir Paint, have a good one. Thank you for being here, man. I'll catch you on Wednesday. I hope you have a great Monday and a great start to your week. Titan Terra, thank you for being here. I appreciate you as always. Slindy, Leisha, y'all as well. Jack Ann, it was great to see y'all. I appreciate the support. It's wonderful to see you here every day, or every other day. It's great to have y'all. IDK, you said you'll definitely be back for the next stream. Well, thank you, my man. I appreciate it. Y'all, I'll vamp for one more second here as we wait for Sage's question. But Sage, if you don't want to ask it today, I'll be back Wednesday morning, same place, same time. So you can ask then. I can't read your name, but you said, do you remember what you write, or do you eventually forget a bunch? I do forget. I often forget, but I go back and reread. I've written novels that were published years ago, so I have to go back and remind myself once in a while. That being said, I have a pretty good memory for things that I write. They stick in my head pretty well. Sage, you got your question in. Let's see. You said over on Video App, "I'm struggling in writing a book, getting to where I'm headed from where it is. Any recommendations or any tactics to work that out?" I'll try 2 things. Try to plot it out ahead of time, a direct route to where you want the story to go, and see if you can follow that. If that doesn't work for you, throw out your plans about where it's going and just let the story go where it will. Sometimes I find that I have the idea in the back of my head. I don't know how I'm going to get there. and I just follow the writing, and it ends up getting there. Try both of those and see if either one works for you. You're kind of learning, am I a plotter or am I a pantser? Do I plot things ahead of time, or do I write by the seat of my pants? Some authors, differing approaches. You got to do whatever works for you. Nully and Sage, if that doesn't work for you, let me know, and we can talk it through some more. All right, last one. Nully, you said, what do you write about? Well, I am just on my way out. But thank you for asking. We'll go over it one last time before we end for the day. Nully, I write fantasy and lit RPG. Here are my books. Fantasy up top, lit RPG down below. They're all linked in my bio, so feel free to check them out if you want. This is the most recent one. It's a comedy fantasy about goblins trying to retrieve the Dark Lord's Doomsday weapon and help him destroy those pesky forces of good. But they're goblins. They mess it up. They get distracted. They go on side quests. They mess those up too. It's a very wacky good time if you're into comedy and fantasy. Please check it out. Gio, good to see you, buddy. We are wrapping up, but hope you've been doing well, man. I need to pop back into your stream as well. Gotta catch up on how it's been going. And Willow, you said my ask is, where is the nice jacket? This is the jacket you're talking about? I got this from Burlington Coat Factory in 2017 in Boston, I guess. So I don't know how to tell you more than that, but I'm glad you like it. It's my favorite jacket as well. Anyway, folks, thank you for being here. Hope you had a good time. I certainly did. I appreciate you joining me today. I'll be back Wednesday, and I will see you then. Until then, thanks for tuning in. Gio, we do need to catch up, my guy. Hey, feel free to message me, man. You know where to find me. I want to hear how your stream has been going. Have a good one, y'all. Peace out, and I'll catch you on Wednesday.